Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. So it's so surprising, like so many people, they are liking the videos, they are sharing the ideas also, that where they need help. So today what I thought is that one of the most important topic which you need to learn before you start working in clinical research is that ICH GCP. I thought to cover it end to end so that whenever you need, you can save it in your favorite and you can revisit this training. So let's start. So ICH GCP is an international guideline. You have to remember this. This is a guideline. It is not our regulation. So that's a key difference. So we will cover today end to end training. What all you need to learn about GCP we will cover in this session. And finally, I'll give a timestamp also, that if you wanted to skip through some session, you can skip. Like maybe you are more interested in 13 principles, then you can directly go there. And if you wanted to learn about the responsibility part, so you can jump into that. So let's begin. So what is ICH GCP? I wanted to bring your attention first. I have written intentionally conference. So now many students, they still call it a conference. It is a council now. Council for Harmonization. So earlier, before 2015, it is known as International Conference of Harmonization when it started, but now this has been replaced with Council for Harmonization. So these two words are being replaced. So always keep in mind. So that's what I thought I will bring your attention first to this. So it is an international, which means it's a global guideline, right? It's a global, all the countries, they are following on the technical requirement for registration of pharmaceutical product. So tomorrow, if you wanted to bring any treatment, any vaccine, any diagnostic to the market which you wanted to use for human use, so one has to follow ICH GCP guideline. How these came into picture? What was idea behind it? Because these came into existence in 1997 only, right? So before that there was no such guideline. All the nation, just imagine, all the nation, they were doing research as per their ways, right? So which means there was a lot of repetition, lot of wastage of research effort. But the same research is being getting repeated. Like imagine the same research has been done in European Union, but no one knows, and the guidelines was not uniform. The same will be repeated for Japan. So what happened? All these nations from 3 territories, again European Union, Japan, and their regulatory body also. Just imagine two key bodies, regulatory body, like your FDA, EMA, right? Japan is Health Ministry of Japan, and pharma companies of these 3 nations, they came together and they thought, we will have a mutual acceptance. They shake their hand. They agreed for a mutual acceptance of a clinical data. What does this mean is that if research is happening in EU, the data will get accepted by Japan, or a vice versa, right? So they came into agreement that if the research is done in one territory, and then same data, especially it's all about data will be accepted in another territory. So this is what I have told you, and all these guideline principles, they are based on of Helsinki, that is respect, beneficence, that all these fundamental principles which came into 1969, and ICH GCP is based on this. So in a nutshell, if you wanted to define ICH GCP, you can say that it is international guideline, remember, it is international guideline to conduct clinical trials. Now what is GCP? If you wanted to define it, so basically these are international ethically and scientifically quality standards. Basically how you have to do your research, these guidelines can tell you, right? For what? How you design, how you are going to plan, basically, that is this guideline is covering. That's why they are having template on a protocol, what are the things they have to cover, right? And all these 13 principles, they are evolving around that, and how you have to execute. When you plan your trial, just imagine the same way you plan your experiment in the lab. So there are some guidelines. So this cover guidelines for designing. Then how to execute that trial, again there are guidelines. And how to record, basically how to collect the data. We collect mostly data in CRF, case report form, these days ECRF. So how to record that data, what are the, like GCP says that you have to record a data in a real time. Real time means if thing is happening at 10:20, you have to record at same time. It's not like that you can record next day, then it's not a GCP. Right? In a real time you have to collect a data. Just one example. Then data, you have a collected data. Now what to do with this data, this raw data? You can't interpret anything from a raw data. Then you have to analyze. Mostly SAS programming or statistical models, they are used to analyze the data. So, and you have to prepare clinical study report. So these guidelines are covering how you plan your trial, how you conduct, how you record a data, and how you report a data, especially the research which involve human subject, because C is a clinical, good clinical practices. When it is clinical means human. So if I wanted to define, we said ethical, two words, ethical and scientific. So ethical is when you wanted to protect the right, safety and well-being of the subject, that is ethical. So it's not like that tomorrow you imagined and next day you are planning for your research, not like that. So you have to evaluate, is it really ethical, is it in favor of humanity, that is ethics. Another is what all the research that you are doing, can you trust that data? Are you doing in a fair way? Okay, your intentions are very good, you are wanted to help the human, right? But how about the data that you are collecting in a trial? Is it trustworthy? That is known as a quality data. So now combine these two things, ethics, quality data is your GCP. This is simple occasion you can remember. Quality data plus ethics is your GCP. So you really are safeguarding the right and safety well-being of the subject. Anyone who is asking you the GCP definition, always tell them to protect the right, safety, well-being of the subject. Second, see the quality and integrity of the data. That the data that you are reporting in a clinical trial is really trustworthy. And ICH GCP guidelines are more strict than your regulation. Why? Because all the regulators, maybe it's your FDA, maybe it's, if you are in India, it is a DCGI. I mean, if you are another country, their regulatory body, they are asking you to follow GCP. So which means although GCP is a guideline, but it is more strict than even your regulations, because what regulators are saying, have to follow a GCP, right? Now what are the key contents in ICH guidelines? It covers principle of the GCP. What is the foundation of a GCP? That is a principle of the GCP. Your ethics committee, what is the responsibility of investigator, sponsor, your clinical trial protocol amendment, this is the planning part, this is more on execution part, your investigator brochure, all the essential guidelines, essential document, investigator file, all these are covered by ICH. Now let's talk about what are the fundamental principles for GCP. There are 13 principles, and this you should know all the time. You should not know these principles, but also need to understand these principles. So first principle is the Declaration of Helsinki, that any research that you are doing, it should involve the respect for human, there should be a benefit. that is your declaration of Helsinki. And if you are a clinical research student, I will say that go and study about the declaration of Helsinki. It's very important, benefits, justice, respect, all these three pillars of Helsinki, right? The research should be as per the declaration of Helsinki. If there is only need for the research, then only you should be doing that particular research, because ultimately you are testing new medicine in human, right? There are always side effects. Now another thing which is emphasized on GCP is that your benefit should be more than your risk. And how you ensure this in clinical trial, and also when your drug is in the market? Pharmacovigilance, all about safety. During clinical trial, no doubt you are closely monitoring everything, you are reporting side effect, right? So you have to see that benefits are more than side effects, right? Risks are less, benefits are more. The moment there is imbalance in this, the regulators ask pharmas to withdraw the drug, or there can be a serious consequences. So benefit should always be more than the risk. And once the drug is in the market, we have pharmacovigilance in a place which monitor these things. Pharmacovigilance is the one field who helps to maintain this balance, right? Another is protection of subject, or you can say participants, research participants. So you have seen that in the Nazis, the trial, those are done by the Nazis, they have caused so much of harm to the subject and the participants. So any research that you are doing, you are of course enrolling human participants, so they should not be harmed in the sense, again you have to monitor side effect, right? The moment investigator or doctor see that there may be a potential harm to our research participant, they can basically terminate the trial also, they can hold on the research also, so that they can evaluate. So right, safety and well-being of the subject should be protected. Always remember this statement, right, safety and well-being of the subject should be protected. Now in this IP is investigational product. Or you can say new medicinal, because investigational is because we are investigating, it is not approved yet, it is unapproved, correct? So sponsor should provide sufficient information on this new product, because if the information on this new product IP is less, then some major harm can happen, some mistake can happen. To achieve above 3, you should be having sufficient information on your investigational product. What I mean by sufficient information on an investigational product, like what are the known side effects, what is the dose, right? Any toxicity reported, all that information should be available on our IP, like storage temperature, everything should be known. Now the research that you are doing, it should be scientifically sound, right? Which means you should have proper plan. Protocol is nothing, it's a plan of your research. So detailed plan, you can also rewrite it as a detailed plan. What I mean by detailed plan is that how you will carry out your trial, how one will carry out trial. Basically, if there are 10 steps, you should be knowing all the 10 steps. What will come first, what will come second, what will come third, like that. Next is all the research should be approved by ethics committee. All the institutes, those are doing research, they have ethics committee. Ethics committees, we will learn also in the responsibility part. Main role of ethics committee is, to look for the protection for the subject, they should not be harmed. Ethics committee also look into the minute details, like how much blood sample the researchers are taking, is it needed. So if once we were taking like 3 ml of blood sample, then ethics committee they raised a query. They are asking like how much plasma you need for testing, give us detail, right? So then we give them all the formula, this much plasma is needed for these many tests, that's why we are taking 3 ml of a blood. Now who the person who is investigator, they should be qualified physician or a dentist. If the trial is happening in a children, that investigator should be pediatrician or so on. So or even there are studies where investigator is not a medically qualified person, then there should be another medically qualified person in their team. Sometimes investigators can be PhD, especially epidemiological research, right? But that in that scenario, in their team there should be a qualified, medically qualified person, that is your GCP. Now continuation to the 8th principle, all the staff who is working should be qualified by education, experience and training. This is the reason you should be having GCP training. And once you are in job also, you will also get a refresher GCP training like after every 2 years. So all the staff who is working in a clinical trial, they should be qualified by education, experience and training. And this is the reason sometime organizations ask prefer to people who are already having GCP training. So today I am giving you totally free training, right? And freely given informed consent form. Anyone who is participating in a clinical trial, they should be given informed consent freely, voluntarily basically. Informed is they are all being informed about this is a research, who can take a participate, who cannot take a participation, what are the complications, what can go right, what can go wrong, all these things. Consent is agreement. So all the research participants who are participating in a clinical trial, they should be given freely informed consent. Now another principle is that appropriate clinical trial, CT is a clinical trial information management. So there should be a system and processes that trial can be managed appropriately, right? Like from which how the things will flow, that what is the process of handling that clinical trial, that should be in place. How you will be keeping your whole record confidential, so that is also GCP principle. So now how these principles are applicable practically. So suppose there is one company, they are doing a trial and they leaked information on patient. So what does this mean? They failed to comply this principle, which means when they will submit a data to regulatory body, they will catch them here that the patient data has been already leaked, it is not protected. Then it means you have not followed this principle. Not only this is major thing, not even leaked, maybe they are writing clinical study report, they unknowingly they revealed the confidential information. That means this principle is not followed. Similarly, informed consent form, if they say the sign is missing, suppose sign on informed consent is missing, what does this indicate? This indicates that consent is not given. Good manufacturing practice of IP, the new medicinal product that they are doing a research, it should be manufactured as per GMP. Quality assurance and quality control procedure, so it is known as a QA and QC. We have one video on this, what is the difference between two. You can watch that video. So quality assurance is, if I wanted to tell you in a one word, it is audit. That's why mostly audits happen in a clinical trial. Quality control is, as a big example, monitoring. verifying your record is monitoring, and assurance is your audits. So there should be, so see, if suppose there is one clinical trial that happened, and then regulatory came to know that there is not a single audit, which means they failed to meet this principle. So that's the reason by default sponsors, they keep a QA and QC in place so that they can follow this principle. So if you are finding this information till now, interesting, please comment like yes, at least write yes. If you don't want to write anything, type yes in the comment section that you are finding this information useful. Now speaking of GCP, it's not one person's responsibility, it is a teamwork. Investigator, we can make a separate video also. Do let us know in the comment section if you want a separate video, who is investigator, right? And sponsor, basically the one who is giving money. CRO, contract research organization, your ethics committee, so it is a shared responsibility of all the team member. It's not like it's just a sponsor's responsibility or an investigator's responsibility or just ethics committee responsibility. It's a responsibility of all, including patient. So if they are following all the instructions carefully, that means they are helping the team in doing research in a right way. Even if they experience some side effect, and if they reported immediately, that means they are helping. Now after this we will be learning the responsibility part. What are the responsibility of a sponsor, what are the responsibility of an investigator, what is the responsibility of an ethics committee, and what is informed consent. These are the 4 topics we will also be covering in this GCP training. Now who is sponsor? Basically the sponsor is the one who is taking complete ownership, who is giving money also. Now sponsor, 90% of the times, mostly these are carried out by by pharma, or you can say biotech, or device companies. So 90% of the time these can be the sponsor. But any company, sponsor definition is any company which we say pharma, biotech, device manufacturing, or institute like you say that ICMR, any health institute of any nation, or your WHO, NIH, if you are in the US. So all the leading healthcare institute of any country, institution, or any, you say there are NGOs also like Clinton Foundation, there are many more. This also drug for neglected disease, these are the organizations. So basically any company, institute, organization, or even some individual also, and a doctor can also lead a research, who take the responsibility of initiation, management, and finance. Who is taking responsibility for end-to-end research, management also, overall, and adding money also, giving money for that research, that is known as a sponsor. So this can also be a question during interview. Sometimes people are asked like, okay, mostly student answer that pharma company is a sponsor. That's fine, that is happening most of the time. But other than that, your institutions, organization, maybe some big pharma universities there, right? Definitely they are doing some research, so they are having some funds and they are taking some ownership also. They can also be your sponsors. Now coming on to sponsors' responsibility. Now sponsor is the one who is, you can say, the leading a trial. Sponsor is leading the trial, oversee. So they have to look into the design of the trial. They have to decide what will be the objectives or resources. Resources, what does this mean? Resources, who will work. All the staff is simply putting all the staff. Qualified individual, clinical pharmacologist, or maybe PK scientist, physician, biostatician, medical writer, a SAS programmer, anything. These are few examples only. So he is the one who is responsible to appoint a team, and he is the one who take the ownership to design a protocol. Case report form, CRF is a case report form. Plan analysis like reporting and trial material. So he is the one who has to take the ownership for designing a trial. So protocol is all plan about your study. So sponsor responsibility is they have to select someone who can give a medical expertise. So basically they have to select a qualified professional who is a medically qualified to ensure that right and safety well-being of the subject is intact. One of the GCP principle is, if you remember, is that we have studied is medical care. Now look at this, responsibility is linked to this principle. This is founding principle, medical care of the subject. So now it's a sponsor's responsibility to have some person who can provide an expert medical advice, who can take care of a patient. So what is the role of that person? To advise on trial related medical questions and problem, regulatory submission, apply to regulatory authorities and country for a permission of clinical trial conduct, submit all essential document as per regulatory requirement, initiate study only after regulatory approval. So that's the sponsor's responsibility. First is medical care, second is regulatory submission. It is sponsor's responsibility that they have to take a permission from country's authority. Say in India, it is DCGI. If it is another country, it's their regulatory authority. It is sponsor's responsibility to submit all the documents on time to regulatory bodies. And they have to ensure that they can initiate a trial once they got approval. So this is also sponsor's responsibility. If you remember, one of a GCP principle is clinical trial processes, and this is related to somehow these submission things are related to that clinical trial processes. Another responsibility is selection of investigator, you say the PI, and institute where this trial will be conducted, which site, which hospital, who will be deciding that? Sponsor will be deciding, right? That's the reason site selection and all those things are responsibility of a sponsor. Why? How they select these things? Based on appropriate patient population, site facility, is that site or hospital is capable of doing that, and investigator expertise and time, is that investigator is experienced, do that person has a time? All these questions are assessed by sponsor. So tomorrow if there is a finding that this investigator is not capable, that investigator has done so many mistakes while conducting clinical trial, so then who is liable for that? Who will be responsible? Sponsor. So another responsibility of sponsor is to provide proper protocol, investigator brochure and sufficient time. Now based on this is making an agreement with the investigator is also sponsor's responsibility. And what this agreement should be saying? To conduct a study as per GCP. Look at this, GCP is so important. Sponsor makes an agreement with investigator that they have to ensure that they are doing the study as per GCP. Tomorrow they can't say that no, we are not informed. They are informed by agreement. GCP is one, two is regulatory requirement, and third is protocol. Protocol, whatever is mentioned in a protocol, they have to follow. If it is said that you have to report after 14 days, then they have to do that. If it is said that after every 7 days there will be a patient visit, they have to follow this. And if they are not following this, that is deviation or can be a violation. And they have to ensure that data is recorded and reported properly to permit monitoring and auditing of the study. So this, all these things and sponsor take from investigator in a writing, like they will allow auditing and monitoring to happen. It's not like tomorrow some auditor wanted to audit the site and investigator is saying I don't have time. He can't say, because he is legally bound to do that. There is an agreement between that, and he also has to retain study document for a specified time. It can be a 5 year, it can be 3 years, based on what the agreement they have. It may be 2 or 20 years based on in which territory you are. Financial agreement, like what will be the arrangement of the finance, CTA signed with the investigator, right? So all these things, confidentiality agreement is signed with the investigator that he has to do the trial per GCP regulatory requirement and protocol, and he has to record a data in a proper way, because there is no use of the trial if that investigator is not recording a data properly. And they have to allow monitoring and auditing to happen at their site. And not only that, they have to keep the study record for specified time, and they also need to come to an agreement on a financial terms. Another responsibility of sponsor is they have to allocate the duties and responsibility, because this sponsor, as we have learned, who can be who can be the sponsor, you can mention in the comment section, like pharma, institute, who can be the sponsor, right? So a sponsor also has to allocate the duties, because most of the work is being delegated. So who will do what, and what should be the qualification? So if there is a medical monitor role, so sponsor has to ensure that that person is medically qualified, or maybe pharma D, So person should be medically qualified if they are choosing according to job. Regulatory and EC submission, that who will be doing? Study related procedure, monitors, audits, is CRO will be doing, or who will be doing, or sponsored by themselves are doing? Who will be the auditor? Is this CRO is doing the auditing, or some independent auditor? This can also happen, independent auditor. Adverse event reporting, who is responsible? What is the frequency? What is the plan for QA and QC? As I told you that QC is more or you are monitoring in a clinical trial. Who will be doing? CRO or sponsor is taking responsibility by themselves. What will be the frequency? At what time interval this will be done? QA audit, is it happening every 6 months or once in a year? What will be the time frame for audit? All this is the responsibility of a sponsor. Data monitoring, processing, who will be doing the analysis of culture, because you will be having thousands and thousands of table. Who will be doing the analysis? Study report preparation, medical writing, again, is it outsource or in-house activity? This all sponsor has to ensure, and they have to document in a writing, like who will be doing which activity. Another sponsor responsibility, that he has to ensure that ethics committee review is complete. They also need to know that particular members of ethics committee, and they should be knowing showing that ethics committee is trained on GCP, because even DCGI is saying that membership can be revoked if the person is not trained on GCP. Ethics committee approval before start of the study is again responsibility of sponsor. Sponsor has to ensure that ethics committee has approved the study before they can start the trial. Another responsibility, investigational product, because this is new, it's not approved one, and sponsor is responsible to provide all the data and updates in the form of investigator brochure. So when the product is new, you should be knowing what its chemical structure, right, mechanism of action, temperature for storage, right, and many more things. What are the known side effects? All this information should be provided in the form of investigator by sponsor. How this will be manufactured, packaged, this should be manufactured and packaged as per good manufacturing practices. GMP is a good manufacturing practices. And how it will be supplied and stored, labeling, everything should be ensured by sponsor. Like will it be supplied by cold chain, where it will be stored, -20°C or room temperature. So all this information will be provided by sponsor. Now even IP procedure, investigational product procedure, like how to receive it, how to handle it, how to store it, and how to dispense it, because you might be having 10 sites and sponsor will be shipping this IP from one place, from manufacturing place. Now how to receive it means is when you receive IP, there is always temperature controlling unit is always in it, so you have to record a temperature, but all these instructions are shared by sponsor. How you will handle it, basically at what temperature you will be keeping it, and if some unused product has been left, how you will ship it back, all these information is shared by sponsor. Retrieval of unused product, so if product is unused, then you have to send it back to a sponsor. So you have to maintain a system for disposition, how you are disposing the product, and additionally the team need to keep a record based on all this information. Another sponsor responsibility is safety information. Safety, what is the side effect of investigational product, what are the known side effects, so these will be mentioned in the IP. What are the safety instruction? So tomorrow there is, suppose, any serious adverse event or adverse event, the investigator first they will be looking at investigator brochure, and if it is already mentioned in the investigator brochure, they will be coming to know that it is known, right? Notify the finding that adversely affects subject participation in the study. So any safety related information, whenever they came to know, that they have to notify to a site, basically which is affecting subject's well-being. They have to take an appropriate measure to safeguard the subject. How this information is shared with the investigators? Suppose there is one site and they came to know one major side effect, so immediately that same form, safety form, will be shared with all other sites. And whose responsibility is this? Sponsor responsibility, because there are 10 sites, one site has experienced that particular side effect. Now it's not responsibility of that site, that site will be sharing that information with other sites. This site responsibility is to share with sponsor, and sponsor's responsibility is to share with everyone. Sponsor also have to share that adverse drug reaction reporting. They have to provide the investigator with ADR and AD forms where they can report. They also need to expedite the reporting of serious and unexpected adverse drug reaction to concerned authorities, including ethics committee, regulatory bodies. So adverse drug reaction reporting on time is the responsibility of a sponsor. So this is related. So look at this, which and this responsibility part especially related to which principle of ICH GCP? Right, safety and well-being of the subjects. That is one. Another is your basically protection of the subject. That is one. Another principle it is related to is your benefit should be more than risk. So how you will be ensuring this thing? By ensuring the safety. Another responsibility is also quality assurance, that is of course your audits. Verification of protocol compliance, this happens by monitoring. So now just imagine, is the monitoring happening on time is the responsibility of a sponsor. Verification of compliance with GCP and regulatory requirements, is the site is compliant with all the regulatory requirement. Regular supervision, data verification, SDP is source data verification, so that again is ensured by monitoring. Work quality, administration, is the staff is up to date, is the staff is sufficient, if someone has left, new staff is coming on, check on the documentation. Application of ethical principle, informed consent, is it happening in a right way? We will study in the GCP about informed consent as well. Administration and accountability of study drug, suppose they have shipped 100, say 100 packets, and if the site has used only 70, only 70 participate, where are the rest of the 30? The site has to send these 30 packets back to a sponsor, or they have to show a proof of destruction as agreed upon. So, but ultimately, if tomorrow this math is coming as 99 only, then sponsor have to check with the site where this one has been gone, because it is new drug. No one can use it without they are participating in a trial, right? So they have to track it properly. So this is a sponsor's responsibility. Audit, who will ensure that audit is happening on time? Sponsor, right? So an audit is one thing that is not mandatory by the law, but these in a way they are mandatory, because one again QA and QC again is the principle of a GCP. Who has to ensure this? Sponsor. They have to ensure that purpose of the audit is that trial is as per GCP, SOP, non-compliance. And auditor should be independent of the study. Either they are different department in a company, or they can be independent auditor also. In case of serious and persistent non-compliance, study can terminate it also. At site can also be terminated, study can also be terminated. So tomorrow this helps sponsor also to save them. So there was one case of a Pfizer long back, and they said that 50% of the participants in their study they withdrew because they have done audit and they found that the participating CRO, they were not compliant to GCP and SOP. So this, how they came to know? They came to know by the audit only. So then they took a decision that 50% of the trial participants they will be withdrawing. Study report. Now see, trial is complete. Now just imagine for 2 years or maybe more than that, or maybe for 1 year, you have done so much of hard work, collected a lot of data, and if this data is not reported in a right way, then whole effort will be in the waste. So to prepare a clinical study report is the responsibility of a sponsor, because this study report is ultimately submitted to regulatory bodies for marketing purpose or safety update also. In case the trial is not going in a right direction, sponsor can also take a decision to premature terminate or suspend the study. There can be many reasons. One reason can be, as I said, maybe a site is not doing in a right way. One reason. Another reason is drug is not showing effect. So drug is not showing any effect. Another reason can be safety. Safety is that many side effects they are coming, high number of side effects are coming in. So study can be terminated, or there can be many more reasons, right? So who can take this decision? Sponsor can also take decision. Premature termination, or even can say suspend. There may be some other studies ongoing, and based on that study, and they found that result of this particular drug are not good, or they are not in favor, we are not going to get any beneficial beneficence out of this, then they can decide to suspend the trial. The reason can be many. So This is part 1 of a GCP training. I hope this will be very helpful. We will be having 2 more parts. In part 2, we will be covering investigator's responsibility, ethics committee's responsibility, and part 3 will be dedicated to informed consent form. So I hope this session is helpful because if you will be covering all these 3 sessions, and you can learn, I think, end to end about a GCP, and it will help you to gain knowledge, and you can do good in your interview and your job. So thank